Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I know that accessibility might not be the sexiest topic ever, but I'm going to try to make it interesting and a little bit fun. And I know that when people hear about accessibility, usually a lot of assumption comes with it. So for instance, designers might think that they will have to design something that looks super big, that is just not going to look great. While developers, they're going to think that it's just going to take forever. Implementing all those features, not a great thing. Well, producers, as usual, are going to think about money and timeline and what to do with it. While the clients, well, I don't even know really what it is, but more on that later. So it's especially more true in the advertising industry. So where, again, those kind of websites we work on that live just, for just a few months, where you just have a very short timeline to do those websites, just a few months or so, and then the user's attention span is very short. So let's do a little quick test. Who here is wearing glasses or contacts? That's quite a lot. Cool. Just imagine now, this morning you all left your apartment, hotel, whatever, and you forgot your glasses, you forgot your contacts. You already feel how your day is going to be. Then you get to the train, the subway, and then you meet everyone here, and the train is full, it's packed, full of people, and then you try to reach out for your smartphone, try to read the news, and the news takes forever to load because you're on the train and the service is awful. And then you get here, you get to the Awwwards Conference, and there is this French dude started talking about accessibility, and then all of a sudden, commence à parler français, et là, vous comprenez absolument plus ce qui se passe, vous comprenez absolument pas ce qu'il est en train de dire, mais heureusement qu'il y a tout ce qu'il est en train de dire au-dessus de sa tête. Anyway, so just to show you how quickly your day can be very bad if you forget your glasses, or even if you stumble upon, a website that doesn't speak your language. And that's kind of the point. That could happen to everyone in any type of situation in your life. A non-accessible product, a non-accessible website impacts more people than you think. And of course, when you're designing, when you're developing, thinking about accessibility, you do it to include as much people as you can, and you're thinking about disability. But that's the thing, it could concern any one of you at any point of your life. It's about disability, it's about screen readers, it's about keyboard, it's about any one of you. So hi again. Wow, I look huge. My name is Arnaud Tanielian, so it's a bit hard to say, so you can just use Dan Tag on the internet. I'm a technical director at Stink Studios here in New York. And I'm from a little town called Châteauneuf-les-Martigues, close to Marseille. This is completely useless, but my mom will love this. So one thing to know about me is that I am not an accessibility expert, and there is a lot of them here. I'm thinking about Sabrina, I'm thinking about Pablo. Those are very accessible specialists that you can check out their work. It's awesome. What I am at the core is that I am a creative developer. So I've been a creative developer for the past 10 years, working in studios such as Stink Studios. I worked at Soleil Noir, where Flash was a big thing back in the days. So I kind of work with those people who love, good crafts. They love to push for pixel perfect. And I've been working on those kind of websites where, it's very focusing on front end. So it's a lot of animation, a lot of transition, a lot of motions. Every single website were unique. And it's awesome. I love doing this, but obviously in this area, not a lot of people care about accessibility. But if there is something that I like, it's also a very good experience, a very good user experience, and that is something I guess you also like to do. And I believe that UX, user experience, concerns everyone, from producer to the developer, to the designers, but that would be fun as a talk. But what makes a very good user experience is when all the people can actually use it, fully embrace your website and fully interact with it. And I do love good work, like I love when a website is well designed, when it loads fast, when you can think about this little piece of interaction, this little smart piece of code that you've coded. And that is something that I really love, is doing good craft. And I saw that during the past years, focusing on accessibility, it was something that I also liked to focus on. So that's something that is great. A good user experience is really when you do a good user experience is for every single user. So speaking about the users, some of them might have a little bit more difficulties. So as Sabrina said this morning, over 1 billion people on Earth, which is 15% of the global population, have some form of impairment. And in the US here, it's 57 million Americans. So form of disability include difficulty of grasping or lifting something, so you can think about a mouse, cognitive, mental, or emotional impairment, or the more classic vision or hearing impairment. So that's a lot of people that you can obviously exclude if you don't not work on accessibility. So it's a lot of people, and what do we do about it? So again, quickly, because we talked about it this morning, but a group of very experts on the internet, W3C, came up with the WCAG, which is a guideline for us web professionals about web accessibility. So it basically it's a set of rules through different levels, AA, AA, AAA, obviously AAA being the hardest one to get. And it's being used in Europe with the EU Web Accessibility Directive. So it's basically a 15-page directive that aims to promote accessibility. So it's not a law by itself, but at its core is the WCAG 2.0. As here in the US, there is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which has been done in the 1990, and revisited in 2010 to include more stuff about web accessibility in it. But as the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is working on its own regulations, so far the recommendation is to use the WCAG 2.0 as well. And a little brief talk about lawsuits, because we love lawsuits here. In 2018, there were over 2,200 lawsuits here in the US, which is an increase by 181%. That's huge. That's something that's going to come back at you, especially next year. People think there's going to be more and more lawsuits, especially here in the state of New York. So, if you don't want to think about accessibility for your users, maybe you want to think it to not end up in court. Okay, so now let's get real a little bit. What are you guys seeing here? Okay, not everyone at all. So those are buttons, super simple. Super simple buttons. Why are these buttons? Well, it's simple because you can recognize the shape a little bit. There is a background color with a label on top with a good color contrast, so you can actually read it. You understand it's a button, you kind of want to hover it, you kind of want to click on it. It's a button, so great. If you recognize those as buttons and you're designers, that's a very good step towards accessibility, even though it's a very super simple example. If you recognize that, it means that you're already using established standard, established rules to design something for the mass, for everyone. Now, if you're Neo like me in the Matrix and you look at how it's been coded, there's different way of doing it, right? So this is what a screen reader will read if you strip out any design. So that's literally the code and what it would render. So on the right, that would be kind of like the good way of going. It's been coding using an HTML button element. It renders a button by default. And a screen reader or a keyboard using the keyboard navigation can actually recognize that as a button. It can trigger an action. That's cool. And the label is clear. It says that it opens the menu. We are good. While on the left, well, if you strip everything here, you don't recognize anything. The screen reader cannot know this is a button. You can do anything with it. It just says learn more about what we don't really know. So there is something very simple here for developers. Please respect the semantics and the standards. Those are here already. It's not that hard. It's part of a job. Just get into it. If you need to design something that you have to click on and it does an action, that's a button. If it's something you click on, it goes on a page, it's a link. There's very simple rules to follow as are already here. As for the designers, I'm not a designer per se, so obviously I'm not going to get into it. And we briefly talked about it before, but thinking about inclusive design, stepping back and designing for all users is very crucial. So today I wanted to talk also about a project that we've made at Stink Studios that we released in June, last June, for the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Riot, which is Stonewall Forever. So we made a documentary, we made AR applications, but we also made a website that is fully WebGL. So Stonewall Forever, it's a living monument that celebrates the 50th anniversary of Pride. It was created through a partnership between Stink Studios, the New York LGBTQ Community Center here, and the national parks with the support of Google. And it basically is here to expand access to LGBTQ history in commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Riot. So as you can imagine, inclusivity was really part of our mission, really part of the brief. And how did we turn an immersive and unique WebGL experience, full 3D, into an accessible website? Well, the first thing, first of all, that we took care of is performance in general. But the first thing you want to do when we talk about accessibility, obviously, is, in this basic form, is to be able to access the page. Very simple. So what we did is that we optimized the website for a very fast loading experience. So the first step we took was to generate a static website. For those who are not familiar, basically a static website is being able to generate every single HTML page that you're going to have and put them on a CDN, on a static server. So when people try to access your page, the page is already made, it's already done, you just grab it, you're good to go. And for instance, here, we have a landing page with a starting button, and that page only contains the bare minimum, the logo, and that's it. And then just a bit of JavaScript to kick in the experience. And then once everything has been loaded, we are loading in the background the image or here the video. We've been also using techniques like ghost loading or lazy loading. In this case, we're also loading assets that are optimized for the current user context, meaning if you're home on a desktop with a good Wi-Fi connection, we're going to serve you very good images with good quality. While if you are in a train and you don't have a good connection, well, we're going to serve you an image that fits mobile, but also that is not Retina, for instance. So you're going to have a shitty image, but at least you're going to have one. Second of all, well, again, semantic and standards. So on top of being a WebGL experience, there's obviously content views in it and UI, and pieces of UI. So it's a bit more classic content, but it's very essential that this UI has been coded in a good way so keyboard users and screen readers can actually navigate through it. So for instance, here we have a secondary page with a drawer, and being able to just tab through it. When you press enter, it just opens it, and then you can tab through inside it. That's very important. Or here, when you tab up to the menu and you start tabbing in, the tabbing experience stays inside the menu. And now the navigation. So the main part of this website was this huge WebGL experience, this huge WebGL monument. And basically, when you land in this monument, you start at the bottom, and then the goal is to go up and to explore all the piece of content. So a piece of content is represented by a particle that you can interact with, and all those contents are arranged by collections. So when you land here, the first thing that we do is that we onboard the users by saying that you can actually scroll, but you can also use your keyboard. And that is very important for us to have this accessible for also the keyboard users. So then you can also interact with the particles around you using your mouse. Or if you will be on your phone, you can actually look around and start swapping up. So here you go through the first collection. And then you have the second part of the onboarding that tells you that you can actually interact with those giant and glowing particles. And WebGL by default is not accessible at all. So what did we do is basically having this navigation at the bottom always here, so a user can actually tab through it and access the same way the content. And that was very important. This is why we did it, because we thought about accessibility first. And this is what guided us to actually implement this navigation. And if you're lost, by all time, there is this little information icon on top that you can click on, and then it would guide you through another onboarding session. Cool, so how did we get there? So basically we use tools during development, but also after when it's in production to make sure we can actually check that we were good. So those tools are for developers, but really anyone can use them, especially the first one. And they're all on Chrome. It's not like I have anything to do with Google, but it's just because I happen to use Chrome a lot. So the first one is a very known one. You probably know all about it. It's Lighthouse. So Lighthouse, for those who don't know, it's a very good tool to use. So basically, it gives an audit it audits the pages of your website. So it just audits one page at a time. It's not like an audit for the whole website. It's just like, in that case, just the home page. And basically, it gives you a score from 0 to 100 in 5 different areas: performances, accessibility, SEO, etc., etc. So it's not an accessibility tool per se, but it's a very good start, especially in terms of performance, because it's going to give you recommendations on how to improve your score and how to get there and how to have a very fast loading website. The second one I've been using a lot is the web developer extension. So this one has a lot of features inside. You can disable the JavaScript. You can disable the CSS. And what I've been using here on chobani.com is basically highlighting the headings, making sure that the landmarks for screen readers are here so they can go through the whole website at once. So showing the headlines is one thing, but they can also show the entire document outline and making sure that every single title makes sense, and then we have H3s, under H2, under H1s, etc., etc. Well, the last one is called Wave. So this one is very dedicated to accessibility. So it basically adds a layer on top of your page and then scans your page and try to find any issues in terms of accessibility. So it will find stuff like, hey, there is an empty link, there is a broken button, you are using the wrong area attributes here. And for designers, it also shows you any color contrast issue. So looking at color contrast on your sketch file is very good, but actually looking on production, it's even better. And the good thing for us developers is that if there is any issue, it highlights exactly which line has an issue. But those are automated scripts, right? And nothing could beat an audit made by real humans. And for two things, because, well, first, the first one is that those people are experts. Those are experts that are going to audit your website, and then obviously on top of fixing it, giving you the tools on how to fix it, your team is going to learn a lot from it. So if you have a QA team in a company with accessibility experts, that's great. At Stink Studios, we've been working with a lot of external vendors to actually implement those accessibility fixes, and the whole team has learned a lot, not just the developers, but the UX designers, the producers. Everyone at once learned. So today, we have the tools, right? We have the knowledge, we have internet to make website accessible. And by simply adopting best practices during production, so when you're starting developing or starting designing, you'll be already 80% there. Really, like semantic standards, they are here already. It doesn't take that much. It doesn't take that much for a website to be accessible friendly. And taking the extra mile to make it level A, AA, AAA, obviously takes some time, but with some knowledge, working with audits, external companies, working with tools, you can get there. And making your client aware of potential risk, obviously having a product that is not accessible is one thing, but also telling your clients that making a website accessible can have a lot of benefits. It's going to make your website load faster. It's going to make your website more readable. It's going to make your website more SEO friendly. It's just going to provide for all the users a very good experience for all of them. Thank you very much.